Put that visor on because you're going to be looking snazzy at the card pool. I'm your host, Stu.
And I'm Kyle.
And today we're looking at part 3, which is going to be the money cards that we have here from Worldwake.
Yes, indeed. This is part 3 of our 4-part series discussing Worldwake. You can take a look back at some of our other segments, I'm sure up here somewhere above one of our heads, Stu's head, okay, talking about some of our hidden gems from Worldwake in 2 parts. But without further ado, let's start this review. Move on to some of these valuable cards we got here.
Yep, and let's go to number 1. Now, this is an infamous card of Magic. It is called Jace the Mind Sculptor, and it comes in at a solid $88. Now, this card's been reprinted a lot, and that's still after all those reprints.
Yeah.
So this is a Planeswalker that costs 4 mana, double generic, and double blue. And it starts out with 3 loyalty, and it has 4 abilities. The first one being a +2, look at the top card of target player's library. You may put that card on the bottom of that player's library. For 0, you can go ahead and draw 3 cards and put 2 of them from your hand back on the library, on top of the library in any order, sorry. -1, return target creature to its owner's hand. And then lastly, for -12, which would be the ultimate, exile all cards from target player's library. Then that player shuffles his or her hand into his or her library. So this is a whopping card. Yeah, this is a lot to take in.
Right there.
+2, let's start there. Sounds good?
Yeah, the +2, I mean, it's fine. Like, +2 is pretty good for a loyalty ability. And so maybe you can get somebody, like, to not draw as good a card as they were going to, but of course you don't know what you're going to give them either, so...
And it takes you out of the bolt range, which is good, so going up to 5 kind of makes it so he'll be able to take at least a hit.
Right, but it doesn't really do a whole lot.
No, I mean, I'd rather something like, and I'm not a big fan of it, but what was the one you pay 2 life? It's the Phyrexian blue mana for
Gitaxian Probe.
Gitaxian Probe. Almost had that. I was going to say Probe, but it's not that. I'd almost rather that than just using Jace's, but this is continual, doesn't cost you any life, so this has a pro to that. But the 0 is really good.
Oh, yeah, the real money on this card right here, this free brainstorm every turn. Oh, yeah. Sign me right up.
Well, it's almost, I'd say, like a better divining top for it in a sense, because you get to like look at the 3 and then put one of them directly into the hand.
Right, well, it is basically brainstorm. It is the exact same effect.
Yeah, but it's also like divining top.
It is kind of, yeah, but it's very.
But it can reach a little bit more.
Very, very good.
Yeah, you can jump out some cards that you don't need from your hand. You can go ahead and clean up whatever. You can smooth out whatever you need. It's just solid right there.
Yeah, at the end of it, you may be like, oh, well, I only really drew 1 card. Yes, but you saw 3. How awesome is that?
Seeing the future, I mean, we've seen so many movies about that. It's dangerous, but in this case, it's a lot less dangerous. But moving on to the -1. So typically in a Planeswalker, we want to see some sort of creature token come out or some way to protect it.
Some way to protect it, either killing creatures or doing something else.
And this is it.
Right
the
here.
-1, it is, again, for just -1.
You did 3 times. That's really good.
Yeah, at the very least. And if you're versing a green deck, which blue loves to do, why not for just nothing, pretty much, put like something huge back into their hand? It's going to take another turn to recast it. They're going to come back. They're going to lose it again.
Yep.
It's a tedious battle. And I'd say it's almost better than getting the token.
Might be. It might be. And then that ultimate, yeah, you pretty much win. What else is there to say?
Well, it is 1 player, and again, to get up to that is not an easy feat unless you're going outside of, inside the realm of proliferate, or if you have something like
Doubling Season or something like that. Yeah.
So, I mean, it goes great in Atraxa for obvious reasons, and it goes great in so many other wheelhouses. It's good. I wouldn't say it's something that's required for Commander. But for what it does, it's very serviceable. It's got the modes.
Yeah. Well, I will say that you're probably right in that in Commander, this card starts looking less impressive than it does somewhere like Modern. But let's not make any mistakes here. This is the best Planeswalker ever printed. Fact.
Whoa. Even more than Tibalt?
Yes, more than
the best Planeswalker ever created?
Oh, yes. Hands down. There will probably never be another one as good as this.
Probably. This is when they were first kind of figuring out what to do with Planeswalkers, and they definitely made this one the most powerful.
Having 4 abilities on a Planeswalker is just broken, no matter how you look at it.
We see that in other Planeswalkers, though, so it's not the biggest thing, but having 3 options initially, because anyone that has an ultimate, you're just down to 2 options. It's either this one's good or this one's bad. And having a 3rd one in there to kind of round it out, it really takes it to another level. It's low-costed, you get so much out of it. There's not much more you can really say about this guy.
It's a value machine, and if you don't have it, I guess not really a big deal, but if you have it, you play it, And that's all there is to it.
Best Jace, but commander-wise, maybe not the best Jace for that. But moving on to our second one, and Kyle, take it.
All right, well, number 2 on our list is a land for $53 a pop. We have Celestial Colonnade. Now, it enters the battlefield tapped, can tap to produce blue and or white mana, and you can also animate it. So if you tap 3 colorless, a white, and a blue. Until the end of the turn, Celestial Colonnade becomes a 4/4 white and blue elemental with flying and vigilance.
Yep, it's the best man land in the game.
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah, I mean, the flying and 4/4, that's pretty decent size right there for a land that pretty much dodges almost any form of removal. But then again, remember, vigilance. That is what makes this card so good.
The saving grace, 100%, because the biggest problem with all these other animate lanes, and we're going to go into them in a little bit, give a disclaimer, some of them are also in the money list coming up. Typically, we like to separate them out, but they're almost different.
They're all so different. I felt like we should talk about
their
them
applications are totally different for each one. Like for this one, for example, the strongest part about this one is the vigilance, like we were saying. It makes it so once you attack with it, you can then tap it for mana, which the other man lands do not have.
Yeah, and the reason this is so expensive, not only has it never been reprinted,
well, it's about to.
Although it is about to be, yes, but it had really never been reprinted until recently, and also this is the single most perfect finisher for a control deck you can imagine. It doesn't take up a spot in your deck, really, because it's a land.
Yeah.
And you could just play all spells in your deck and still have a giant creature to hit people with turn after turn. I mean, how cool is that?
It's evasive, it's decently costed, and also the greatest thing about having manlands is that they work in so many unique places, because now you have a blocker, now you have an attacker, now you have a sack target if you need to keep your commander alive. I've versed many a Grave Pact deck and have animated the land in order to save my commander, and they never remember that it's there. So this is super good. The only manland I think that might be stronger than this is Inkmoth Nexus.
That is pretty good. I mean, in fact, it's tough to argue with that.
Yeah, and Mutavault might be a close second over
That doesn't
this.
get played as much as it used to, but that's pretty cool.
But for tribal, like this is an elemental. Elementals do have tribal, so it could work in that. They are 5 colored, so this could get some extra little umph from it. But beyond that,
yeah, I mean, manlands are at their best in control decks because they're not obsessed with playing lots of creatures. They can play cheap, low-cost removal and counter spells, and then just rely on manlands like this one to tap a lot of mana and finish out the game eventually.
Yep.
That's why it's good.
It's totally solid. But moving away from our land and into another creature, at my number 3, or our number 3, I'll say, is at $30 for a card called Stoneforge Mystic. It costs 2 mana, 1 generic, and a white for a core artificer that has a 1/2 body. And it has an ETB here saying whenever it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for an equipment card, reveal it, and put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. Lastly, for 2 mana, the same as its converted mana cost, you can go ahead and tap this, and you may put an equipment card from your hand onto the battlefield. So, eye to eye, line it up right there. Whatever you tutor for is coming out next turn, provided that this stays alive.
Yeah, to absolutely nobody's surprise, Stoneforge Mystic makes this list because it's a great, great card.
And it's only been going up ever since. I had one, I got it for $12. I'm happy I got it for $12, and it was pretty expensive then because that just spiked at that point even.
Definitely, and I mean, especially one of the reasons why this card is really scary with the advent of bigger equipments that have germ tokens, like the living weapon cards, especially
so good.
This and Batterskull are partners in crime. You get a reduced cost Batterskull, which is this giant 4/4 vigilance lifelink beat stick that you played for 2 mana with this guy's ability
so
on like turn 3.
It's so good. And it's really abusable in Blink decks. It's good in Mono White. Saram decks love this. It's another staple for it because, again, giant equipments is like Argentum armor, phenomenal.
Yeah, and cards like Steel Shaper's Gift, Open the Armory that tutor for equipments, they're great, you know, they're really good at what they do, but this is a creature that just opens so many doors for you. And the fact that you can cheat it into play for less cost than you might have before, yeah, that's really good.
Well, and White likes creatures, and it can reanimate them from the grave. So being able to get this back with like a Sun Titan, value on value. If it has haste, go ahead, bring it in, equip it to Sun Titan. They have instant plays making so you can equip at instant speed for 0 cost. It's a very white card. It works really good. definitely home and commander of this one.
I am interested to see how its price will change in the future, though, because there's currently, and has been for some time, a debate raging as to whether or not this card should remain banned. It's, at the moment, pretty much banned in every conceivable format, except for, like, Commander.
It's fine.
But they recently unbanned Jace the Mind Sculptor, and everybody was like, oh my god, this is going to break Modern, and nothing happened, and nobody cares. So Stoneforge Mystic seems to be the next card on the list, being like, is this really too broken, or has the game advanced to a point where this isn't that big of a deal anymore? I would say it's probably not that big of a deal anymore, because, I mean, sure, like I was saying, you can cheat in a Batterskull on turn 3. Is that really the most powerful thing you could be doing in Modern right now? Probably not.
Maybe Modern, no, but I mean, Commanders, you have ways to untap creatures, so you can get more than one out. You can get your affinity on even quicker.
Right, I would say this card is like really great at home in Commander, obviously,
Definitely.
and it's obviously not banned there. But is Stoneforge Mystic too good for Modern? What do you think? Is this card? Are we at a point where this is fair, or should we just not even
We're asking
open that can of
Commander
worms?
players. I don't think they're going to have any freedom of reference.
We'll see.
Well, either way, blip above me right now. I'm going to put the words Kyle's wrong and Stu's right for as in. So click on which one you think is more applicable in this scenario. And it's going to legit say that. Anyway, moving away from this guy, Kyle, kill it with number 4.
All right, well, number 4 on our list for the price of $18 is an artifact called Amulet of Vigor.
Classic.
Now, this costs only 1 mana to play. Whenever a permanent enters the battlefield tapped and under your control, untap it. Very simple effect, but deceptively very, very powerful. This is still pretty much close to a top-tier type card in Modern, but most of its partners in crime have been banned in the format, so it's not quite as good as it was anymore, but still, I mean, what can you say about something that lets you circumvent all kinds of rules like this?
Yeah,
it's really good.
It's so good.
Yeah.
I mainly see this in home for Guildgate decks like that used to Maze's End.
Yes.
Just because the gates come into play tapped, it gets you that kind of speed you need. This is low costed. It's tutorable, 1 for an artifact and 2 for being a 1-drop artifact. Trinket Mage is like a very easy tutor to get this for. And I mean, the only thing I'm not sure the true iteration of this is if you have something that's like a controlling kind of card like Thalia, which makes it so that creatures come into play tapped, which would have the priority on this? Would it be it enters, Thalia goes off, and then Amulet of Vigor, which would untap
no, because they have to enter the battlefield tapped because Thalia says so, and then this card untaps them.
So it would circumvent.
Oh yeah, like all kinds of things, like Blind Obedience, Authority of the Consuls, all those things. This card pretty much turns them off. They don't do anything. I especially love this card in situations with I love the Tri-Land cycle, but they all come into play tapped. This makes them just like 100% better.
But why not use the layers?
But they make you bounce a land back to your hand.
But they don't come into play tapped,
I don't know
unlike
how
the
I feel
other
about
bounce
those.
lands. We'll bring up those cards at a different time. I think we even brought up a couple of them before.
Probably. But yeah, this is a great first turn play. Probably like the best first turn play like ever, other than a Soul Ring, maybe. But yeah, this is just really, really, really good.
Aether Vial.
I mean, Commander, But yeah, this card Darts,
though. Oh, Skull Clamp.
Well, that's pretty good too. There are a lot of good ones you can do, but this is one of the better ones.
This is I'd say in the top 25, sure, but great card. Works for a variety of things. It's just all about tapping, which is the biggest part. So, moving away from this and into another one of our man lands. At number 5, we have a card called Creeping Tar Pit, and it comes in at $16. This is the blue and black one, so obviously it enters into play tapped like all the man lands do, produces blue or black mana when it can, and for 3 mana, it makes it so that this becomes a 3/2 black and blue elemental creature that is unblockable, and it's also a land. It's a shame it's black and blue, because it got beat up. But beyond that fact, it's really good for just being able to go ahead and pierce through. So you can go ahead and make it you can get this equipment when you animate it. You can make it so it has auras. It can go with any kind of creature boost. If you have something like a Mirari's Wakeout, to make it so this is no longer a 3/2, a 4/3.
Yeah.
There's a variety of ways for it to go with.
Yeah, and basically what you're getting here, again, is you're paying for 3 mana, you're getting a 3/2 unblockable that has haste, basically, and also sort of, kind of indestructible hexproof, because it's really hard to interact with these cards properly because half the time they're not even creatures.
Yeah,
It's
which makes it good
great.
because they're evasive towards board wipes. It's not like Dryad Arbor is the one that's typically the most iconic man land I think
Yeah.
that you see out there, but it doesn't have haste, so it can't tap for mana the first turn it comes out, kind of like these. And also, it's always a creature, which means it's always susceptible to attacks. But
Yeah.
it works for different forms of reanimate, whereas in certain colors, you can't bring a land back without going through bells and whistles.
Yeah, you don't really see Tar Pit out there as much as Celestial Colonnade, our earlier card, but the reason people don't play Tar Pit as a finisher, they just kind of play it as an incidental good card in these colors, so you can kind of be just like, well, I have a land that gives me both colors. Oh, and hey, at the end of the game, you know, maybe this can help me close things out.
Yeah.
So it's not a huge finisher like the other one, but it serves its purpose too, and especially for us blue-black players, I love this thing.
It also goes in a Mirkar Voss deck, if you think about it, because like getting the damage through, it's unblockable, you get the mills out, which is great, so, I mean, it's another Mind Funeral trigger.
Oh, definitely. It's great. It's just a great card overall. I would play manlands over not manlands in a second.
Yeah,
so.
I'd play it over a Guildgate if you're not running Amaze's
absolutely,
End.
yeah.
But moving away from this guy and into another creature. Kill it,
All
Kyle.
right. Well, number 6 on our list here is Amna Locus of Mana for $15. Omnath costs 3 mana, 2 colorless, and 1 green, and he's a legendary elemental. He starts as 1/1, but he doesn't stay that way. Green mana doesn't empty from your mana pool as phases and steps end, and Omnath Locus of Mana gets +1/+1 for each green mana in your mana pool. So as we all know, with the normal progression of a game of Magic, if you're in a certain phase or a certain turn where you tap a land or anything else for mana, it then goes away as that specific phase ends. Omnath makes it so that that doesn't happen anymore, which is a huge game changer. And not only that, can you store up your mana as long as he's in play, but he gets bigger for it, which means he can get really scary really quickly.
Yeah, this is a great card. It's very classic. It's great when it does, and it's green at its core for so many reasons here. It's probably one of the better mono green commanders out there just because it's low costed. It scales with the game so easily. And it makes it so that green can get to the late game that much faster.
Definitely. It is one of the best, if not the best. I don't know.
See, I also like it as the 99 a little bit more as well because it has that versatility once it hits. Same thing that we see with like Crewfix, the god, being able to like, all right, now I have storage counters. I can start going ahead and using this.
Yeah,
so it
Crewfix is almost better, except he only stores it as colorless. So.
But yeah, but it also doesn't like...
He's harder to kill, for sure.
It's
so that's
not
one
reliant
thing.
on green mana, so that's the best thing about him. So if you go ahead and you have a Soul Ring, you tap it, there's 1 extra colorless floating, that fizzles.
Yeah, and the thing that disappoints me about Omnath is a lot of people make the mistake that he's playing with +1/+1 counters, which is not the case. I wish that were, because then you could proliferate the crap out of him and he would be that much better, but it's unfortunately not that way.
Well, because people play it the same way. They put the die on there for the counter marker. But one thing to note, actually, out there for... this probably has happened to a handful of viewers, but if you haven't played with this card, one thing to be wary of is if you deal damage to this guy and then they remove counters, that damage quantity is still there for him. So let's say he's a 10/10, you deal 9 damage, they remove 2 counters.
Right.
He's dead.
Exactly. So, you got to be careful with this.
Yes. So it's one of those things where you have to be a little bit wary with the interaction and how it plays for you.
Yeah, don't get too overconfident, but Omnath is, if you're a green fan, a super good commander choice.
Totally.
You can't go wrong with that.
Well, enough of Omnath. We're going to go on to number 7 here, and this is going to be another one of the lands. I'm getting all these lands almost.
Yeah, I guess you are.
All right, for $13, we have Raging Ravine. Now, this is the green and red one, staying on the green train. This one also enters to play tap, produces green or red, and for 4 mana, you can animate it and make it so that until the end of turn, it becomes a 3/3 red and green elemental creature with whenever this creature attacks, put a 1/1 counter on it. It's still a land.
And before you ask, yes, even if it's not a creature, the counters do still stay on it, which is why this card is good.
That was what I was going to ask. I was going to ask what you're doing for lunch tomorrow. But that's good to know, too.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, yeah, the counters do stay on, which is an important factor. And it also works great for proliferate because at this point, you will constantly have a target. Whereas sometimes it feels lame, or if you don't have anything to proliferate and you have stuff in your hand to proliferate, but you need to play stuff to get a board substance rather than getting no value, you can at least get the land that'd be a little bit bigger. And this is a solid card. It can get haste, it can get evasion just for being in these colors. It's really good. And I mean, I'd rather Celestial Colonnade over this, but this can scale and scale really, really well.
Yeah, this doesn't have the same kind of home in a control deck because we're talking about green and red here, but it's just another addition to that kind of aggressive deck's arsenal where eventually, because these decks tend to rely on creatures, if you end up getting like board wiped into oblivion and somebody's playing the control game really, really well, you can then bring this thing in and start beating them up and they don't even know what to do about it at that point because at first, it's just going to be for 4, a 4/4 with trample. That's pretty good right there.
For 4 mana.
And then it's just going to keep getting bigger the longer they don't deal with it.
Yeah, and if you have other stuff out there to put extra counters on there, I mean, doubling season we always go to. Or any of the other stuff.
I think it goes without saying I would play all 3 of these man lands in Commander, but it's possible that this one, out of all those 3 we've talked about, might be the best one in Commander, ironically, because it keeps getting bigger.
I don't know. I still think I'd take Celestial Colonnade over this guy, but I do like it more than the Creeping Tar Pit. I think it's just because those colors need more creatures, because I can interact, again, with sacking targets and stuff like that, and yada, yada, yada. But either way, can work with other worlds.
Yeah.
But all right, go on to number 8, Kyle. What we got?
Well, for number 8 at $9, we have Death's Shadow. Now, this is a bizarre card that takes a little bit of thinking to really understand where its power is at. It costs 1 black, and it's an avatar creature. Death's Shadow gets -X/-X, where X is your life total, and its stats are a whopping 13/13.
That's not bad luck.
Right. Well, if you think about this, you look at it, it does nothing up to the point where you have less than 13 life. Because at that point, it would be a 1/1 when you play it. Anything before that, you just kind of play it and it dies.
Right.
So you would think, why is this any good? Because you need your life total to be low. Why would I want my life total to be low?
Because you're in black.
Well, right, you're in black, which uses life for all kinds of things. And the answer is, once your life is low enough, you're playing like something that's probably not a 13/13 at that point, obviously, but something that's like a 7/7 or a 6/6
for 1 mana.
1 mana. That's crazy.
Yeah, obviously this is better in another format. Same thing that we saw with Sarah Ascendant. This is the inverse Sarah Ascendant. Sarah Ascendant's way better in Commander, where this one's a lot worse in Commander.
This one, I would not play this in Commander except for one very specific instance, which is Varyl's the Scar Striped.
I thought you were going to say Grave Pact. You pay 1 mana, it dies instantly instead of having to go with
there are a lot of, I would rather play a Fleshbag Marauder for that, but still, with Varyl's,
1 mana?
You can kind of just throw this into the graveyard and then scavenge it, 1 mana for 13 counters on something. That's pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah, or what is, I guess you're right. With that, or like something, what was the other guy where stuff enters the grave? The Dimir Mastermind, what's his name? Lazav?
Lazav, yeah.
Would that...
Well, he would still have the same effect, so he could potentially kill
wouldn't just steal the
himself.
stats.
Yeah, no, not really. But it's interesting because Death Shadow is a format-defining creature in Modern currently because it's a very powerful threat for its cost, and because playing a lot of fetch lands and all that, players in Modern do tend to lower their life totals very quickly, so this guy becomes powerful a lot quicker. It's just really cool. You can do a lot of things with it. A lot of people like to just bring it back from the graveyard after tossing it early on. That's pretty good strategy right there.
It's literally an ace in the hole at that point.
It's just really, really good. Low, probably one of the best power creatures for a low cost like that in the game. It's just really good.
I'll take a Sarah Ascendant in the white pie, but for Commander reasons. But it's good. It's a decent card. I don't care about it in Commander. But
no, me neither, really.
But moving on to the last card I'll talk about, number 9. This is a classic defining card, especially for Worldwake. It is called Avenger of Zendikar. It costs $7. It still costs $7. All right. It has 7 mana in its converted mana cost as well, ironically. 5 generic and double green for an elemental with a 5/5 body. He's got 2 effects, so let's start off with the first one. When this card enters the battlefield, put a 0/1 green plant creature token onto the battlefield for each land you control. Lastly, landfall. And we haven't gone into landfall too much, but what it is whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you may put a 1/1 counter on each plant creature you control. So, just to point out there, this is not a plant tribal deck card. This is a winning game con that you see in green out the wazoo. And this goes in many other decks as a win con because it's just mono green. It can go into green red, green black, whatever. It just grows the fields. It's crabgrass, the card, pretty much.
There are a lot of cards that I think of when I'm trying to come up with the title for best green creature of all time. Craterhoof Behemoth is up there for me. Tireless Tracker is up there for me. Yes, it is. But
if you're going landfall, this is way better on landfall front.
This is a very solid contender for the title of best green creature of all time. I stick to that. This thing is just amazing. It's bonkers. It's nuts. The value you get is insane. Even if you're playing it with a Soul Ring and maybe a couple other mana rocks, you're still probably going to net at least 4 or 5 tokens when you play this thing, which immediately, if you then play a land after it, almost doubles the power level you have on the field instantly. And you may look at this and you think, oh, well, they got a couple of tokens, so they're 1/2s, big deal. Yeah, then you're going to feel pretty stupid when they throw down a Cultivate or an Explosive Vegetation, and then they're suddenly swinging at you with 3/4s or 4/5s. Yeah, it'll happen.
Yeah, and green also has other stuff out there, like Beastmaster's Ascension. All right, now that just got online like this. And the one thing I do like about this card is it is a little bit fairer in the fact where it is, like you said, it scales with the lands. So if you go ahead and you do like an Elvish Piper, bring it in on turn 5, it's not as scary because, again, it's 5 little dweeby plants. And once this guy's dead, they don't get any effect for it, especially if they don't get the land drop in or they're missing land drops.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's funny because a card this good and that is obviously this powerful, it's not unfair either. It's not really broken. It is eminently fair. It really is.
Yeah, somebody goes ahead and plays this, they're like, I know this card. Yeah, all right. Welcome back, old nemesis. Like, it's not something that just feels OP because it's, again, a 5/5 for 7. They're getting more power out of it, but only if they work for it. And, I mean, Titania decks or Titania, however you want to call her, this deck flourishes in that because it's all about getting its lands, sacking lands, growing a field. It's crazy in that front. And also, any plant creature can go ahead and get a counter on it. So if you have the land that goes ahead and creates a plant token, that too will also go ahead and get a counter.
Yeah, which we mentioned before in our other segment. And keep in mind, the tokens aren't just good for attacking people. You can use them for all kinds of other effects. Personally, I like to use this in my Mazarek deck. It generates an army of tokens for me to sacrifice for all kinds of effects.
Yep.
It's just as good for that too. And a lot of other uses too, I'm sure.
Yeah, Altar of Dementia, Phyrexian Altar. I mean, I guess any card that has Altar in it for the most part, sure. But yeah, solid card. I've never been upset about this card coming out. Like, if you lose to this, you see why. It makes sense. It's very fair.
Yeah, and if you don't really know this card, get familiar with it. And if somebody plays it, be very, very afraid.
Yeah.
It has to be dealt with.
Especially if it's a landfall deck. But moving on to the last card, Kyle, you finally have a land to talk about.
I do, and it's an interesting one too. At $6, we have Eye of Ugin in our number 10 slot. It is a legendary land. Colorless Eldrazi spells you cast cost 2 colorless less to cast. Then also, tap 7 and the land, search your deck for a colorless creature card, reveal it, and put it into your hand. Interesting card. Well, you first have to note that one of the drawbacks of using this is it doesn't produce any mana on its own.
Yes.
So outside of an Eldrazi or heavily Eldrazi-based deck, it's probably not going to do you a whole lot of good.
No. You're not right in that case. There are realms in which it can also be good. You can make it so this can produce mana in a variety of ways. If you have a Chromatic Lantern out, if you go ahead and there's an Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth out, which is either on your field or anyone who's running mono black, this can go ahead and make it so it is now susceptible to produce mana. You also could do stuff. Again, there's other ways to do it.
You could, but why jump through hoops? I'm not going to play this if I'm not playing lots of Eldrazi.
Well, colorless creatures, that's the only thing you need for this. It doesn't have to be Eldrazi. Now, Eldrazi are the first thing that pops in everyone's heads when you think of colorless, but artifact creatures are all colorless.
And that is perfectly valid. You can search all kinds of artifact creatures as long as they're colorless with this. They are entirely fair game, and that's part of what makes this card still pretty good, despite the fact that it's been banned in every format.
This card here is a colorless staple. Now, the reason why is colorless decks have the hardest time on anything else, even compared to Boros, I'd say.
Yeah.
And that fact where it's like, they need every drop of support that they can get. They have 1 instant. They have like 2 sorceries.
No, there's more than one. There's more than 1 instant. I think there's like 2 or 3 at this
you
point.
see my point.
But,
It's not
yeah.
even reaching the full cap of your hand right there. So they need something to make it so that they can be a little bit more aggressive. And this is something, being able to tutor continually on a land, any color that had tutor ability on it for a land is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So it's very fair for what it does, and the fact that it doesn't produce mana. The Eldrazi cost reduction is nice, but if you put this in a Hope of Gaiper deck, or I mean anything else out there that's pretty much like a powerful artifact creature, this is a staple in that for you to be able to go ahead and get the long game going for you. It's great, especially if you can go ahead and get a whole bunch of mana rocks out there.
Right.
This gets to 7s quick.
And one of the reasons this card is so good, it actually used to be the number 2 money card in this set behind Jace before it got banned everywhere. But the reason is because you may be turned off by the fact that it doesn't directly tap for mana, but lowering the cost of every Eldrazi by 2, that's like this tapping for 2 mana every time you play an Eldrazi-related card. That's kind of crazy. That's like Ancient Tomb, but like a million times better.
Yeah, or Temple of the False Gods right there, without any real cost on you right there. It's pretty much the medallion for this.
So for every turn, this could potentially net you like 4, 6, 8 mana. That's crazy.
Yeah, and the best part about it is it reduces the commander tax if you are using an Eldrazi Titan as a commander.
Exactly.
So I only like this card. Again, niche in its decks, 100% a home and commander, and it's a land. It's tutorable for also being a legend, and we've gone into that in many videos prior. So it's just so good.
Yeah, there are not a whole lot of places I would play this, but in a colorless deck where odds are you're going to be playing a lot of Eldrazi anyway, yeah, play it.
Or if you're looking for some sort of key card to go ahead and end the game. Like I had a Mormir Vig deck, and I was all about getting Ulamog, old school Ulamog with the Annihilator out as kind of be my beat stick. And if I couldn't tutor with the commander, I'd want to have some sort of failsafe. In this case, it'd be also to reduce the cost and all the other good stuff. But just sometimes having something out there to get around stuff, get a Burnished Heart, get a Solemn Simulacrum. And I mean, the list goes on and on for any kind of big things. Like a Triskelion, that's a combo piece that wins the decks.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah.
There's a whole lot of things you can do with this just outside of Eldrazi.
Huge applications, and yeah, while I had this card, I loved it. And as soon as the price spiked for it when Eldrazi first came out from, was it Oath of the Gatewatch or something around that stuff?
Yeah, the whole Battle for Zendikar block,
that was
there were
it.
new ones, yeah.
Popped it off right then, haven't looked back, but it's a great card to have if you do have it.
Absolutely. Well, I think that about wraps it up, doesn't it?
It does, with a pretty bow. So right there, that is going to be the last part
money
of
cards,
yeah, that is the last of our money cards. Sorry, I'm getting so tongue-tied again today, Kyle.
That's all right. Of course, you can always check out some of our other segments.
Yep, check us out, our Hidden Gems, where we dive in deeply about what we liked about the cards that are not as seen and definitely aren't the money cards from the set. They have tons of applications. Kyle and I totally battle with each other, saying why one card's better than the other, or if this is just a disgrace to even show on YouTube. But you can reach us at many different sources, Kyle, or our social media.
Yeah, well, you can always let us know what you think in our comments below, or you can reach out to us via Reddit, Twitter, Facebook, or even email. We're all at the handle MTG TheCardPool. So check us out there if you've got anything to say.
Yeah, or if you ever think one of us is wrong, this guy, be sure to totally let us know in the comments and just rip him a new one. That'd be totally great. But until then, I'm Stu.
And I'm Kyle.
And we'll see you next time at the Card Pool.